times build character.
This isn't just a show, this is real life. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish.
You gotta see it before anyone else can see it.
Every second, every minute, every day.
We train for life. We got you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Episode 10, the Relentless Way podcast. We are rolling. We're in a good rhythm. We hit a small milestone for us, episode 10. We're real excited about that we got here. Just some of our beginning steps and our beginning stages. Today, we are going to get into episode number 10, overcoming your fears by building your self-confidence. Fear is real every day. Our goal, our mission with this podcast is to bring human growth and development to the surface, to really give back to our community, to let our voices resonate through this podcast to our community and anyone else that it could help out, whether it's one person or whether it's hundreds of thousands of people. We're down for it. I'm here with my longtime friend, Matt Strout, and business partner at Relentless Fitness and Training. And we have a special guest today with us, which we're real excited about. Evan Van Arsdale, the one and only. Some of you may know him as Goose, the Goose in the house. So we're pumped, we're excited. This is our real close friend, and watch him grow, you know, from the depths. How old are you? 19. Evan's 19 years old, young buck in the house, carries himself much higher and at a much higher level and standard than that's for sure. So you're going to be able to hear some good insight from him today. He's here to join the conversation and have some fun and bring some good perspective to everybody from a different place. So we're really pumped about this. Our goal is to talk about the fears that come into our life every day, the fears that come into our journey along the way as we're growing ourselves, as we're building ourselves. I want to start it off just with something very, very simple. But to me, there's a time and a place for fear to be instilled, which is a given for me. There's a time and a place where the utilization of fear, for me personally, of using it towards someone or in direction, there's a place for it. But ultimately, what I want to get into and what we're going to talk about is the inevitable, and when fear settles in, when maybe it's not wanted, or maybe it's not warranted, or when it's true and when it's real. Mm-hmm. Matt's going to start us off with a little more perspective, as always, hitting us with a little bit of background on the topic and on what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so I think, like Paul's saying, I mean, fear, it's been something that's been with us from the beginning, you know, and I think you either kind of have to make a decision of either learning how to cope, deal, and work through it, especially understanding yourself and how to like overcome it individually, or it's going to, you know, overtake you and almost, you know, there's the term people use, like paralysis by analysis, like when you feel, we all know what that feels like when it's like settling in, you start getting a little boily and you start overthinking and like, well, what if this, what if that, what if this, what is that, and like all of a sudden you're just going on, and then you just do nothing, you know, and like that, I think everyone can relate to that, you know, so whether you're a doer or a not doer, like even doers still have that, and I think that's one of the big things that we want to bring to the table, is because as leaders on this movement, we take a lot of pride in that, and I think more than ever, our goal is to connect and to show that even though we are leaders and we are willing to stand up and move first into unknown territory, that doesn't mean that we don't have fear. It doesn't mean that we don't have anxiety over things. It just means that our why, our purpose for the mission at which we are playing this game and creating this movement just is so big and so deep in our hearts that we're willing to still know that feeling, take a deep breath, and then step forward and just do what it takes to get the job done.
Right. And that right there is where I want to start with Coach Evan over here. Let's go back a little bit. So let's go back, I guess, 7 years or so. 12 years old. You're walking into the facility, or you're let's actually go back a little bit further, a couple hours before that. You are getting ready to go to the facility. Did you know you were coming to Relentless Fitness and Training that first time when you were coming to the facility? Did you know, or did whoever brought you surprise you?
Yeah, so I knew. I first started, I was looking for somewhere in a box. That was like what I wanted to do to build confidence, right? That's the first thing I started with. Mm-hmm. I ran into it through Matt's cousin, started with that. Right. Yeah, I mean, a couple hours before, I'm terrified. You know, I didn't want to walk in the door. You know, it's just a very, like, it's more physical than anything. You know, your body shuts down, you get nervous, you get quiet, you don't want to say anything. Mm-hmm. So we pulled up with my dad. I'm nervous, didn't want to get out of the car. He's like, all right, I'll see you later. I'll see you in an hour.
He just dropped you off?
Just dropped me off, yeah. Right. So I come in, ready, and the first thing I feel is that big wave of, like, just heat going on. It's just so much stuff happening. I look over, Matt's in the ring, coaching the class, and that was the first interaction. Boom, the handshake. That was the first thing. Mm-hmm. So that, interacting with you and Matt, that was like what kind of boiled it down a little bit. It was still there.
Right.
It didn't just go away, mm-hmm. but it definitely helped a lot to just cool me down and let me go through the process.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, going through that, I think that's like the biggest thing that helps you go through is just be able to be comfortable.
Right.
The surrounding people help you kind of just calm down.
And that's what we set out to do, and that's what was built, was in that moment, was what you felt, you know? Mm-hmm. So now you're in the facility. I want to get the kind of the juice rolling on your first experience, right? Because we're gonna cover 7 years in under an hour today. You know, that's our goal. But we will have to have you back another time. Right. But that's our goal, is to let people feel and understand that that's okay to have that feeling. Like it's normal in a sense. But like Matt said, as you learn and start to feel and understand what the bigger picture is, what your why is, and when that becomes more valuable and brings more energy to you than the fear that you felt, that's when you're going to be sitting in the chair that you're in today, right? So now you had that experience with us, and what followed up after that first experience within the weeks, months following? Like what was part of your journey that really stands out to you, that obviously the fear didn't dissipate, it was still there, right? You had certain moments, but what stands out to you in those moments?
I think through the process, the biggest thing that I took was just being able to stand a little taller, you know, be able to speak and not be so nervous to just not say anything. Mm-hmm. You know, being able to walk in the door and not be, I mean, still to a level, I always had that of being a little nervous walking in, but it just got better. It was the warmth that you guys brought for me to walk in, not just think I'm going to get judged immediately or I'm going to get looked at differently just by walking in the door, you know? So
sure.
that was huge. And even to step back a little bit too, before I even came up with the thought of walking in, the biggest reason I started boxing was self-confidence. Sure. That was it. That's the beginning. I had many moments where I knew in that situation I couldn't defend myself. So that's what I thought, okay, let's figure out how I can build up and be strong. So that's what began in the process, is slowly myself up.
So when you were getting ready, whether it was the night before or days leading up, and you heard about us, about Relentless in the movement and boxing, that's what your mindset was. When we were on the other end, I'm trying to remember now, you probably know better than me, Matt. What was the word from the other end? Like this boy was coming in, and what did he need? Like what was going on?
Yeah, I think the short message from my end kind of was just, it was a close friend of my cousin, and it was his son. Evan's parents were going through their own personal situation at the time, and Evan, you know, had two older brothers who were not around as much, and he was the young buck still kind of home in the middle, and he was, you know, trying to find himself in a way, and they knew that he needed something. You know, he tried a couple different sports in school, and he wasn't really vibing, you know, and I think in the moment he needed Number one, he needed that self-growth and confidence, like he's saying, because he felt kind of like intrinsic almost in that moment. And then at the same time, I feel like there was a lot of unknowingness in his own personal life with his family. Like we all have our own different family ups and downs and shifts and changes. And I think one of the things right off the bat that we were able to bring to him without even knowing it until he knew it, but was like the consistency factor. Like we really brought true consistency into his life where like he knew after he met us and we created a bond and a relationship, he knew exactly what he was going to get every single day, day in and day out, whether it was early, midday, or late. Like, we created that tight-knit relationship, and I think that's where it all kind of started. And like from there, obviously it got us to where we are today, but I think it just started with a young kid looking for something to be a part of, something to build him, something that he felt that was bringing value to him personally, as well as like not just him as a person, but like his overall being, like something greater than that, with the whole home thing going on as well. So I think it was a really cool opportunity for us, right? Because looking back, we were in a position where like, this kid is very, very special to us, right? Because we were in a position where like we were in our own personal evolution and growth as leaders and just men on our journey. And looking back, were we really in a position at that time to do what we did and really take, which we'll get into the details of how we did it, but like to really take this kid under our wing and be like, hey, we're going to take this kid under our wing every day? Like, probably not really if you think about it, right? But I think the overall purpose of why we did it just took control and like overpowered it, right? Because of what we wanted to do with him and what we wanted to give to him.
Yes. That I really want to credit him, number one, and other people that are in similar situations from young to old, just humans in general in the world, right? Walking through any new place or going into any new situation, especially when you're at a place of somewhat defeat or maybe you're a little bit down in life, is the most challenging thing in the world, right? So for anyone to walk through the door with that fear in them, it takes a strong person, number one, off the bat for that. Mm-hmm. What I think is most important, and what Evan was a huge example of, especially into the journey following the months to follow, like through that summer and everything that we kind of set up, which we'll get into, was constantly applying himself. So one thing with the word fear and with the feeling of fear to me is application. So the fear is always going to stay there if you don't put in the work forward, like if you don't take action on it. As you said, right? Like, if paralysis by analysis, if you just keep trying to look up solutions and figure out ideas and have this beautiful game plan, which we talk about, right? Like being prepared, you still have to put the action in. So the biggest thing along the way was, no matter what we ran into, from my faint memory with Evan, was he always just got back up and applied himself. 100%. And even in moments where he was right, even in moments where he was wrong, even in moments where he made a mistake, even in moments where he didn't know, he applied himself. He stepped right back up, even though fear might have been a feeling that he felt initially. The ability for him to work hard and apply himself helped him overcome all of that. Mm-hmm. That being said, following up now, I wanted you to talk about the journey of like the camp we set up for you. So like kind of like, not even camp, like the work we set up for you. So the daily 12, 13-year-old boy, I don't remember if it was that summer following, but it was soon after you started your journey boxing and taking our boxing classes and working with us. What was your experience, and how did you feel then again at that next level of coming in 6, 7 a.m. in the morning till we closed that night, Monday through Friday, just about, and on weekends too, you'd be in here. But basically, we set up your local rec camp at Relentless Fitness and Training for you. Drop off with your lunch, with your belongings, hang out all day, spend time around us, which has been the most valuable thing for all of us in this room.
Mm-hmm. I think it should be a camp, really. We should do that soon. But the cool thing was like, well, kind of funny too, but you guys put me right in the front. First day. That's the first thing. Introduce yourself to everybody. That was like oh man, like I'm terrified for that. But
it was the team.
I had to.
It was like introduce stuff to the team. Like everyone was working
Like,
with members. Oh yes.
Good morning.
I talked to everybody.
Eye contact.
Yeah, eye contact, shaking hands. That was the
That's
biggest
right,
thing.
yeah.
So that was huge. And that built me up a lot. Just talking to people in general and building connections. That's how everything kind of started. And I talked to more and more people and put myself out there and became more known in the whole facility. I think also too, something that I really saw every summer that I was there was, we talk about it all the time, but community. It was so big. As soon as you walk in, right, even besides the team, then it was the members are saying what's up and talking. So I felt so included, you know, all around, from the classes to the groups around, from going around the floor and talking, just trying to communicate and build, you know, more and more connections and just get more comfortable.
Cool. And core value number one, or core value, sorry, not number one, but at the top of our list, connecting on a personal level, connecting with people right away. You know, as we've reframed our journey now, and it's always been part of it, we just brought it to the surface now. So the key point that you keep bringing up, Evan, is that connection and that feeling of being part of something just uplifted you a level in its own, right?
Totally changed the whole perspective on everything. Like, again, coming in, I didn't know what I was going in for. I had no idea, but that's what really brought it to me. That's what showed me and put it in front of me. I just think, I think the personal level was the biggest thing. To just feel like you're one. You know, you're there. You're a part of something, like you said.
And it happened fast for you because you were there every day. You know what I mean? Like it was like the whole summer. So it was once school ended, which is end of June. You were there July, August. 2 full months. 60 potential days that you were. Around that time frame, you were just filling in. You were plugging away, and I think it's something that we've instilled in our hiring process because of the fact of we understand how nerve-wracking it could be and how on edge potential coaches that join the team and even members too. It's part of our onboarding process as well to build comfort, right? To build comfort in an individual, not to work not it to be about speed and fast and how quick we get it done and quantity and go, but about quality and taking your time and experiencing the journey and enjoying the journey, which Matt painted the beautiful picture right here, Evan, right? So like Matt, like when we first started doing this, like, obviously I was part of your everyday too. We were all part of your everyday, but what was going through your head, Matt? Like when did you have a plan for all this like laid out for him? Did you sit down and have a whole map? Like the answer is no, but like what was going through your head? You know what I mean?
So I'm gonna go back 1 second before the camp started of the summer, right? And there was a moment that I never forget, and that moment was he was coming to classes for maybe 2 to 3 weeks or so, and then coming up was the last weekend of the month, which we host something that we call the Relentless Challenge Day. So it's fun, it's free for everybody, members, non-members. We're at a point now, we've been doing it for years, we built up some cool momentum, whatever. We get people coming from different places, and they come and it's really great energy. We bring a live DJ in, we have our whole team there, and everybody's just bringing good energy. So we tell this kid to come, so he shows up. So he's there, and there's a lot of good energy, right? And there's all different things going on. The idea is to just challenge yourself as an individual, and that's what we paint that picture as. And we have all different aspects of our services going on: weight training, conditioning, boxing. Our team's there, and it's just beautiful. So we had a moment where we had one of our coaches wearing a belly pad, which is something that could bring like live interaction of boxing to someone, where they get to move around, they get to hit boxing pads as well as move around and hit some body shots with that coach. So we put Evan in as the first person. He's the first one to go into this part of the drill of the day. I put him in there. And we're watching, we're doing everything. We're coaching the whole room. And I look over and I see the coach like talking to him. And they're talking after he goes hard for a few seconds, right? And then all of a sudden I look over and he's not doing so good. So I go over and I say, he's okay. And the coach tells me he's a little lightheaded and dizzy, which is very common. This can happen, right? Number one, he's young. He probably went really hard right off the bat. He might not have eaten. It's
Get
a
the
whole
glucose
process,
tablets.
right? So I'm like, all right. So I said, all right, come with me. I'm going to take you in the bathroom. So I walk him in the bathroom. I said, we're going to lay down for a second. I didn't know if he was going to puke, like where we're at. Right. So I lay him on the ground. I say, all right, look, stay right here for a second. I'm going to go tell everybody that I'm going to be with you for a second, and I'm going to help you through this. I'm going to go let the team know. So he looks at me. He's like, all right, he's laying on the bathroom floor, right? So I run out, I find Paul, I'm like, yo, I got the kid Evan, he's in the back, I gotta go take care of him. I let everybody know, check my station, I'll be back whenever. So I go to run back into the bathroom, and as I go to run back, the kid's walking out. And I'm like, yo, what did I tell you? I told you to stay in there, are you okay? He's like, no, I'm good. I said, what do you mean you're good? He's like, no, I'm fine, I'm okay. And I said, are you sure? Like, you wanna lay down, you're dizzy? He's like, no, I'm fine, I wanna finish. I said, all right. So I look in his eyes and he's like, I'm good. He tells me it's conviction in his words. And I'm like, all right. I throw him back out there. The kid finishes the whole day. Boom. And in that moment, though, that was the moment that intrigued me, right? We get a lot of people that come in and come out. That moment to me is the moment of separation of an individual. When you get knocked down on the ground, what do? Do you find a way to get back up and persevere through and get the job done, And in that moment, there was something that I was like, all right, I like this kid. So now we get to the point where summer comes up, right? So the school year ends and it's summer now. And at the time, his parents were going through their own individual issues of separation and whatnot. And at the time, because of the way that it was going to happen, both of his parents were not going to be available to get him there at certain times at which we needed. So ultimately, I believe his mom was working nights, his dad was working the day, and we spoke and we talked with his dad, and he said that, he's loving everything's going great, but unfortunately, for the summer, it's going to be very hard logistically to get him there. And if they can, they would maybe try to get a ride once in a while. Mm-hmm. But for now, he's just going to have to take a break. And you could just see it in the kid. He wasn't he wasn't happy with the answer, but it's just the way that it was. And I went home and I slept on it that night. And, I grew up coming from old school movies, Goodfellas, some Bronx Tale, good old fashioned movies like that. And for me, it was a moment of a decision. And like I said earlier, was I in a position to take a young kid under my wing every day and have us just have him there? Probably not. But at the same time, I said, this kid needs this right now, right? So the next day I slept on it, I called the dad and I said, listen, if you want, it's just an option. You could drop him off in the morning before work, have him bring clothes, food, some baby wipes to clean himself up, and pick him up after work. And he thought about it, and we all talked again, and he said, you know what, we're gonna take you up on that. And that's how this all started. That was the first summer, and the kid would get dropped off at 7 a.m., and he'd leave at 7 p.m. Was there a plan in mind? No. Definitely no, right? The idea was no, but I think, like I said earlier, the ultimate mission of what Paul and I set out to do from day one was to lead, was to build something, build a movement, and that was the mission, right? So I think the mission overpowered everything else. The way that we were going to do this, the plan, I didn't know it, but what I did know is that he didn't need to know that I didn't have a plan. I was going to show up every day, and I was going to have something for him to do, and it started with the littlest things. And it was the littlest things of making him be a part of the facility, the movement, and the team. From, like he said, day one was just putting him out there. When we met him, he was nervous. So it was, hey, look at me, eye contact. It was reminding him of these little things, and not in a bad, tyranny type way. It was I wanted nothing but the best for this kid, and I wanted to give him all the lessons and the wisdom that we've already acquired in our young journey. I wanted to give it to him so that he didn't have to go through the stuff that we already went through. If we could give him that's experience, that's wisdom, that's lessons without him having to take the lumps. So from there, it started with that. Making eye contact, shaking hands, interacting, conversation, introducing yourself. Then it was little things. Then it was stocking the waters, cleaning stuff, teaching him all the little things, because little things add up to big things, right? And we started embedding that into his mind and into his techniques and his processes daily, where we create a little checklist. We actually found it the other day. So we had the checklist that we made 7, 8 years, whatever that was. We found it, and the first thing was, tighten the weights, stock the waters, reorganize things. It was the things that we all still do to this day, right? But it started with a little piece of paper and little scratch notes, and then we slowly just started kind of building from there. And I think it organically worked itself out, because in life, and we have an option. We either step up and at least give an opportunity, and then what he does from there is on him, or we kind of just let him go. And we took that chance to give that opportunity, because we knew that him being around was just going to be good. We didn't know it was going to get to this point. This wasn't the overall intent, but I think it organically happened that way, and that's a lot of the beauty behind it too.
Well, I think a big point is that as much as you may not have been truly ready in that moment to take something like this on, or I individually wasn't, our community was ready. We had that already laid out. And there's so many people that are probably listening now along the way that have had moments with you that have taught you a lot too, right? From friends to family to Relentless community and family members to clients, right? We talk about that all the time. As much as we have these conversations with our Relentless family, with our Relentless people, because we build each other. So on the topic of fear, and on the topic of overcoming fear and growing through it, and all the moments along the journey, we all help each other. So ultimately in that moment, we had a strong enough base at that time with our coaching, our team of coaches, and our community, that deep down we felt comfortable enough to bring a young individual in that was growing and learning. And so did your parents and your family, who are unbelievable people. So props to not only you, but to your loved ones, to your mom, to your mother, to your father, for allowing you to have this experience and trusting in somebody else to help in moments that maybe they needed a little bit, because we all have been there or will be there at some point in our life. And for them, it was probably scary too. You know what I mean? If you really talk to them, they probably were a little bit fearful of, hey, where are we sending our 12-year-old son? You know, but they trusted in people around them that knew that this was going to help you overcome a lot of this fear and this angst in your life in that moment and build that confidence. While we're on the topic, again, we applaud you. We applaud your mother and father. They're in this facility. They stop by. We all have good relationships with your father. We talk to him whenever we see him, and your mother comes in and works out from time to time, and you always keep her moving. They're unbelievable people. They were going through something in their life, and without detail, how did that play a role of how well they handled what they were going through in their life, and moments, or maybe of sometimes where they lost track of it just humanly and naturally because of what they were going through in their life. But how did that affect you through your journey, and what things were what were some of the biggest moments where you were like at the ultimate peak of fear and being scared?
I think it helped me, in an adversity way, and it motivated me because, I'm sure there's moments where I just didn't want to be at the house, right? Not even in a bad way, just I wanted to get out and see something different. So that was the perspective you guys gave me.
For sure.
Again, eternally grateful for that, everything that I went through. I think it was used in a way for me just to kind of, like I said, motivate. Wasn't really not too bad of a situation. Right. Just something I needed to break up. I needed to get out and move. So I think that was the biggest thing.
And that's important. That's important to have that. And like we said, we're gonna continue to highlight it. Evan is so good at having that perspective of being in a different situation than most 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old boys would be. So it's not the end-all be-all, but to him in that moment, there was a lot of thinking. You needed another place. So point being is again, going back to what he had just in him eternally, he was able just to apply himself, and he had that grit, right? He learned from a young age. The way you were brought up, you had that, so you had that ability just to say, as much as you didn't realize that you were probably scared to death, more so than you ever have been in moments of your recent years, which we'll get into, but you had that ability just to step through the doors and you rose to the occasion, like Matt said, in those moments. Even though you might look back and be like, I was a little baby, I was scared, for a 12-year-old boy, for a teenager, and the moments you have gone through in the last 7 years, you have overcome a lot of that. So that's why it's important. It's good that you're giving your perspective, and it's something we watch you do every day, is give that perspective to your clients and your people that are in front of you too.
Right. And I think with that whole process, it kind of built angst, and we talk about it with boxing all the time. It's effective aggression.
Right.
So I could use that of what I had and use it as a tool. Use it as a utility. How could I take that energy that I have, that built up, whatever it may be, and put it out into something good? And that's what we did. That's how I used it. It's going through the sport, and just in general, it was a motivator.
So what are some ways that you use that at home and in your work, being a coach and a leader?
Some ways I use it as a coach really is being able to relate. So if I know someone, I've worked with many different kids that are only a couple years younger than me that have maybe just recently been through that situation. Right. It wasn't that long ago. Even for me, it wasn't that long ago. So I can relate a lot of that
Yeah.
It just, again, builds that connection, that
Yep.
personal level. So that's definitely good utility. And I think being at home now, it's obviously very different than it was then. But it's made me more independent. It's
Right.
made me stronger. I've built and be able to do things really on my own at moments. I just feel like I can do things, and it's all myself. I can do that, and I'm fine. I'd be good.
And even probably a strong support for your mother and father too.
Yeah.
I've watched it
Yeah.
directly with
Yeah.
your mom. You know, we're all
Yeah.
mama's boys deep down inside. You know, I've watched you the way you're always there for your mom in a heartbeat, and your father too, but mainly for your mother figure. You know,
100%.
so it's cool to see, and we've watched that along the way. But I think the fun part to highlight is what Matt and I and our team of coaches set out to do, and age not really being that important, but time in and experience being important to the situations of us going through things and going through situations maybe at a younger age than most people would in their life journey as entrepreneurs, and being able, like Matt said, to hand that off and just give it all to each individual that's on our team, that's around us, from our coaches to even people like that have been with us for years, like Ryan here. You know, Ryan, our show producer,
Right.
who's been with us since he was in 8th grade, going into high school. You know what I mean? And now he's moving on in the world, just doing his thing. He's how old are you? Almost what?
20. I'll be 25.
25. So that's a solid 10 years in its own before we even open the facility. So but moments like that, using the community and using everything we have to build each other up and overcome these obstacles, whatever the hell you want to call them, the moments of fear, the moments of struggle, the moments when you're getting knocked down. So, yeah.
I want to highlight something. Yeah, I want to highlight something as I reflect back, right? So when you reflect about this whole process, this beautiful journey, like I said, in the moment, we didn't really know how we were going to do it, right? We just figured it out. We took it on, and we just always stood up tall. And like when I look back now, though, knowing that we had this young, influential, hungry kid that was just there, right? Like he would follow us always. Like he'd be there in a good way, where he was like our right-hand man. But what that did was it leveled us up. Not knowing it then, but looking back now we love those eyes on us, because you understand the value that it brings. But then all it did in those moments of this is a self-made journey. There's moments of exhaustion, of hunger, of anxiety, like not knowing. Those are constantly taking place while we're working in the movement, right? Because there was much more of that then than there is now. We're a little bit more confident. We understand we'll get through any bit of adversity. But at the time, there was more moments where there was a lot more experiences that were happening that we had no clue how to deal with, because they were all fresh and new. So now, all of a sudden, Paul and I have a brand new experience we have to deal with. So what do? All of a sudden now we got this young buck looking up at us, and we got something. So we're like, boom, stone. We're like, all right, we'll figure this out. So now we know we have eyes on us watching. So what did it do is it organically brought us up as leaders, and it taught us how to just lead. And leadership is not something I can tell you, like, hey, you should follow me, do as I say, not as I do type deal. It was shown, it was felt, and the energy that he saw has allowed him to level up in this short period of his life. And I believe it was because of that circle, and it made us better leaders, right? So like now at the time, not knowing what to do, all it did was level us up, because we knew that we had eyes on us, and it forced us to make the best decisions no matter what the circumstance was. So if there was a moment of me feeling a little weak for a second, I look at him, boom, it picks me back up, because I know I got eyes on me and I have to do the right thing no matter what's going on. And I think all in all, it's allowed us to, number one, grow as leaders, but also, like Paul said earlier, it has allowed us to grow processes inside of this movement to help any human become better, whether it's just individual in our community working to become the next best version of ourselves, or someone on our team who's a coach that's looking to become not only the next best version of themselves individually, but the best coach they can be inside of this movement as a leader.
Right. And that's part of every human. Emotions and showing emotion is part of everybody, right? So no matter what, whether you want to admit it or not, those emotions are in you, and you're letting them out in one way or another. So the fear brings that on, brings emotions on, and in all different ways, from happiness, finding success and fighting through something, to maybe sadness and defeat, maybe anger, maybe love. Like there's all different emotions that we could get in and that we could talk about. And along that way, Evan grew exponentially as faster than I've ever seen anyone under our wing,
Yep.
right? For lack of better words, of being it's okay, like being okay to like own up to stuff. All right, I almost cursed. I gotta be careful. We're never gonna get on Apple if I start cursing like that. So he always owned up to it, right? And along the way, there was moments, but you have to remember those moments. You were so young. Those moments didn't happen for me until I was in my 20s, until I was older. I remember like it was yesterday. And it was because of what we expected out of him, because of what he brought to the table.
So good.
You know, I'll never forget a moment where I set Evan up with a job. Right? He's laughing right now. I set him up with a job with our boy Frankie at Bellaterra, and it was something that I did, and a lot of our friends did. We worked through high school and into college. So Evan, mind you, Evan's in high school now. Like fast forward a couple years, so it's like 2-3 years later from when he joined the movement. And I sent him with a job at Bellaterra assisted living facility. He is serving in the dining room, it has a little bit of everything. It's fun, it's grueling, you know, the older people. It's rewarding at times, but it's also frustrating. Right? You're a young kid, you want to be active, you want to be doing things. More importantly, it wasn't a fact that Evan wasn't going to work hard, but he was learning how to deal with what he wanted to do. He was finding himself, right? Which is perfectly fine. But long story short, I set him up, get him through with Frankie. And a couple days in, a week in or so, I'm getting texts or calls from my boy Frank, and he's like, dude, he's not showing up, he's not answering, or I don't know if you told him you didn't want to work there anymore, maybe he didn't communicate with him that way. And deep down inside, I was like frustrated, but then still to this point with our team of how young and how much they're growing, I just stopped for a second, and Matt reminded me, like, dude, remember, like, we're dealing with young individuals here, like we're not dealing with someone that's seasoned, that's experienced this. So like teach them, have a conversation, and bring it to the surface. But also, you know, going back to what I started off with, like it's not about discipline, and it's not about, you know, like making you pay for it, right? Yeah. So it's just simple. I mean, I had a phone call, which he I think he didn't answer the first time or something. It was late at night. I called again. I texted him. I said, pick up the phone. He picked up the phone, and he was like, dude, and he knew exactly what it was, but that's my point, is he owned up to it. Yeah. He picked it up and said, dude, I just didn't know what to say. I didn't want to let you down. I didn't want to let him down. I said, it's as simple as this. You reach out to Frankie, you say, hey, listen, I want to put my 2 weeks in. Whatever you need me to do, if you need me to work them out, I'll work them out. Whatever you need me for in that time frame, I'm here for. But other than that, I'm moving on. Perfectly. So he learned how to handle that. And that was just that was a small example of him being able to show his emotions and take ownership, and also in other moments, like let someone know when you're not feeling the best. Also use your energy when you're confident and you have that energy, and use it to fuel people and fire them up and keep them rolling in life, as we're doing today and as we're doing now. You know, we try to bring our best energy into this podcast all the time, and you brought it today, and this is what it's about, man. This is what it's really about.
I think for us too, it was a great learning experience, because like Paul said, like the standard at which we held for him in our own minds was so high, and I think it's only helped build him up inside of that. Like we said, like when you opened up, like he's 19, but anyone who knows Evan, if you don't know him, you'll get to know him over time, but like he carries himself like not a 19-year-old, right, you know, young man. And it was because of that pressure in a good way that we constantly kept on him, but throughout the way we had to talk to each other through it too, and be like, step back, like, all right, look, kid's 16 years old, kid's 17, kid's 18, like, so we were holding him to up here, but what it did was it allowed us to keep going back and giving those explanations, those lessons of why, and teaching and understanding. And the big thing what I think it really comes down to is, like, it's one thing if any human does something, it's then what you do after, right? Like we love a quote, Paul and I, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it, right? Sometimes you can't control things that happen to you, or like maybe you do them one way and you're not necessarily happy about it, right? But it's what you do after that, right? So it's, if the kid keeps doing the same thing over and over again, that's a different talk we have to have. But if he takes that and he embraces it And the next time an experience or possible opportunity arises like that and handles it different, that is what we're going for. And that, like Paul's been saying, and like that is the thing that we couldn't be more proud of him, is watching him grow and overcoming different obstacles, but not making the same mistake twice, constantly learning, constantly evolving. He thinks like us now. He's a forward thinker now. He's thinking about different innovative ideas of how to add to this movement now. Like, so rather than us being like pulling him back and teaching, now he's almost more forward like us, and has the same like-minded ideas and different things that comes up. So again, long journey, a lot of great lessons throughout it for all of us at this table.
It's a beautiful thing, and I think today we helped bringing Evan to the table and taking a step for him, another step towards overcoming fear. You know, we had a couple moments in the recent past where maybe the camera wasn't Evan's best friend and speaking it wasn't his best friend, but today this is what it's about, giving his perspective. Thank you everyone for opening up your headphones, opening up your ears, and listening to all of our perspectives always, but specifically Evan today. Any questions you have, any comments, any suggestions, fire away. Hit us up on our email, on our Instagram, on our Facebook, wherever. You know where to find us. Find our numbers. Our phone number is on our site. We are not shy. Reach out to us, whatever you need. That goes for all three of us, our whole entire team, everyone that's part of the movement. Share away. We delivered the goods today. I'm confidently going to say this is probably one of my favorite episodes so far, just feeling off in general. Good conversation. It's fun to bring other perspective and other people along that have been part of our journey. I want Evan to do the honors today and leave us off with the final words of episode number 10, Overcoming Fear. If you could give someone, in short, something to go on their day with today, it's just some words, hit them with it right now. This is what you hit them with. It could be anything.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is it's okay to take a deep breath and stop for a minute. Take a second, pull back, breathe, and then go back into it. That's the biggest thing that I've learned with everything.
Boom. Money.
Love it.
Let's get it. Attack the day the relentless way.